Sad news to pass along from the world of basketball. Boston Celtics legend and civil rights pioneer Bill Russell has died. Russell's official Twitter account said he died peacefully with his wife, Janine, by his side. Russell won 11 championships in 13 seasons with the Celtics, 2 of those as the first black head coach in North American sports history. A dominant defensive presence in the 60s, he won 5 MVPs to go along with 12 All-Star selections and a spot on every NBA All-Anniversary team. Before that, Russell won 2 NCAA titles at the University of San Francisco. Bill Russell, the game's greatest champion, was 88 years old. And here's a statement from the NBA's Commissioner Adam Silver reading, Bill Russell was the greatest champion in all of team sports. The countless accolades that he earned for his storied career with the Boston Celtics, including a record 11 championships and 5 MVP awards, only begin to tell the story of Bill's immense impact on our league and broader society. Bill stood for something much bigger than sports, the values of equality, respect, and inclusion that he stamped into the DNA of our league. I often called him basketball's Babe Ruth for how he transcended time. Bill was the ultimate winner and consummate teammate. His influence on the NBA will be felt forever. We send our deepest condolences to his wife, Janine, his family, and his many friends. And for more, we welcome in our champion friend and colleague, the coach, Avery Johnson. Coach, sad news here to pass along with the passing of Bill Russell. We wanted to have you aboard here as you can understand this from a myriad of angles here, having a relationship of your own. Just offer some thoughts here on the legend that was Bill Russell.
Yeah, this really is a sad day. When you look at Bill Russell, just who had an exemplary career, 11-time champion, 12-time All-Star. You know, he won championships as a player and a coach. He was a role model for civil rights. This is a significant loss, not only for basketball, but for society. Bill was very transcendent before his time, and he's a guy that paved the way for a lot of what's the positive, that's what's happening on and off the court, the NBA. He was the guy that was out front with all of the different movements, doing some of the toughest times in American history, and just a sad loss. Just sad to see our buddy Bill go.
Said it best in saying that Bill Russell was a part of the DNA of this league, and I think his fingerprints, his impact on and off court are still felt to this day, as you said, Coach. But this was a champion and an African-American in the height of the civil rights movement who was unwavering in what he believed to be true, both on and off court again. Can you speak to the effect that he had on not just the NBA community, but the African-American community through the 50s and 60s?
When you look at guys like Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, they were unwavering in their beliefs that African-American people can be an asset to society. And they proved it. They proved it by their lifestyles. They proved it by how they conducted themselves in terms of professionalism on and off the court, how they gave back to community, specifically the African-American community, trying to motivate young people to be the best versions of themselves. So, again, Bill lived it. He walked it. He talked it. I had a front row seat many a times at different NBA events when Bill was present to really share his story. But this is a significant loss, not only for the NBA family, but for all of the different cultures that understood how Bill was so unselfish and trying to make mankind a better place.
He really took that role in that time that he was a player and a coach, and then well beyond it, as you saw the way he was regarded and revered by today's players, Coach. And a life lived this way deserves to be celebrated. So let's do just that. And as you said, the greatest champion in North American sport with 11 titles to his name. But the titles only tell part of the story here on court. Defensively, he was a stalwart. He was an MVP. Coach, how did he change the way that this game was played through that decade and a half?
Well, he proved it because he proved that you could win games with your defense. He didn't have the offensive abilities as a Wilt Chamberlain or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but defensively, he was a guy that could score 4 points and then have 15 blocks and 10 rebounds and deflections and leadership. And that's what was so powerful about his career. And it inspired future guys like the Dennis Rodmans of the world who weren't necessarily, elite scorers, but they could play that type of defense. So Bill is leaving a lasting, long legacy that we know offense sells tickets, but defense still wins championships. And Bill Russell was all about defense.
A champion to the highest regard, the MVP trophy at the finals bears his name. The coach, Avery Johnson, here offering his thoughts. We appreciate you, Coach. And here is a look at that illustrious resume that cannot be captured on one screen. The 11-time champion over 13 seasons, a 5-time NBA MVP, member of all of those anniversary squads. Also a gold medalist as he captained the 1956 Olympic team to that medal. Those 11 championships, the most of any player in North American sports. Bill Russell, the legend, has passed at 88 years old. For more, we welcome in CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder, who is our games historian as well. Bill, we appreciate you taking the time here to offer some thoughts on the passing of Bill Russell. This news comes across your desk, and it's not one you're prepared for, but this is a legacy and a life that we have outlined many times before in a celebratory manner, so let's do that here again.
Yeah, Joe, you said it. I have these, I'm sure like everybody, these mixed emotions because as an NBA player, as a champion, as a guy who defined how you could win basketball games and how you could shape a basketball culture, he's almost unrivaled. But as a human being and as someone who made a difference in the civil rights movement, and I'm sure as you have folks on CBS Sports HQ, as people will see on social media, as people talk about Bill Russell over the next few hours and days, everyone will share stories like I'm about to. I once spent 4 or 5 hours at an evening in Kansas City, Missouri at a Hall of Fame induction with Mr. Russell, and it was one of the most meaningful conversations of my life, and that's not even including the sports aspect of it. Just the way that gentleman, that man could reach people in the way that he saw the world and the impact he had in basketball and beyond basketball. It is a life as well-lived, as meaningful, as gracious, as successful as I think you could hope for as a human being.
Bill, you have had the pleasure and the privilege of being the fly on the wall in these rooms and sometimes having that direct contact with these legends. But I think it's also interesting to offer some context here on what people don't get to see, because you get to see that. And not just your interaction with him, but watching Bill Russell interact with his peers, watching him interact with the players of today. What did that tell you about this legend and the way he was regarded?
It's such a great question because I was thinking about this, and you said it. The jobs that you and I have, we're very lucky, and we get to observe. And I've been around LeBron James, and I've been around Andy Roddick, and I've been around Donovan McNabb and Oscar Roberts. I mean, just go down the list, and I'm not sure I've seen, other than Dr. Wooden, someone who commanded so much love when he walked in a room from other greats that evening in Kansas City with Mr. Russell. Dr. Wooden was there. The Big O was there. If I remember right, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were there. It was a night of luminaries, Joe. And everybody commands us at that level of greatness and stardom and success, and certainly the basketball family commands a certain response. But I was thinking when the news came that Bill Russell had passed away, how much love and joy the guy brought into the room. Just people's eyes lit up. Even Dr. Wooden, and there were hugs, there were conversations. This was a guy, if you talk to anyone who was around him, and in my observations, up close, but not obviously knowing Bill Russell well, who was every bit the champion as a human being as he was a basketball player in the big things, in the things that he talked about, in the rings that he won, in his impact on the game and away from the game, in civil rights and in hoops, but also just the ability to connect with people one-on-one, me, some random reporter or a newspaper at the time, or all-time greats. It really was a testament to I know we say this a lot when folks pass away, but this is what a remarkable and special and decent human being Bill Russell really was on every level.
It was a life lived large and one lived well, one we will not soon forget. Bill Russell's legacy lives on long beyond these days. Bill Ryder, we thank you. The game's greatest champion, Bill Russell, 11 times in 13 seasons, a champion on and off the court, has died at the age of 88. And for more thoughts, we say hello to CBS Sports NBA analyst Tim Doyle. TD, sad news here as Bill Russell passes at the age of 88 years old. We tend to celebrate these lives on these days amidst this heartache. That celebration often comes with stories. Can you offer one?
You know, my dad played in the NBA 1962 and 1963. Now, only 4 games, and he happened to play against Boston in one of those 4 games where he did have 4 points. But I was just looking up that year, 1962, 1963, that overall season. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 44 points and 24 rebounds. But who was the MVP that year? Bill Russell. Who hoisted the NBA championship? Bill Russell. And that is really Russell's kind of memory in a nutshell. You know, when you talk about some of the greatest players of all time, Joe, often he is not mentioned. And you know, when someone passes like this, you really got to start diving into, wait, he played 13 years for the Celtics, 12 NBA finals, 11 NBA championships. You know, we talk about records that will never be broken. I think it's very safe to say there will never, ever, ever be another Bill Russell.
You know, we have these conversations and we measure these players against others relative to their success. No one is relatively close to the success of Bill Russell, and you sort of allude to it there. The way he played the game, defense first, might be the reason why we don't laud him in such a way. But when you are measuring by championships, there's nobody next to him. Bill Russell's legacy will live on long beyond his years here in the NBA, TD. As you take a look at that resume and what he was able to accomplish on and off the court, this is a man who set the playbook for today's players and for us as individuals out there just in society.
Yeah, well said. I mean, he did a ton of stuff that, you know, we all know the social injustices, and couldn't even imagine what he went through as far as segregation throughout that time. And he stood proud. He's one of the reasons that this league, the NBA, you know, is where it is today. You know, everyone talks about Magic and Larry taking the league to another standpoint commercially. But when my father played in the NBA at the time, Mr. Russell, I mean, he had a second job where he actually made more money driving a Coca-Cola truck in the offseason than he did in the NBA. So the NBA was not what it is today. Back then, it was a league that was newly formed, and this guy was certainly the foundation of it. You know, I think that the championships are going to be what everyone remembers. But if you're an African-American playing sports, you need to pay a great gratitude for what he was able to do off the floor and what he stood up for at that time when, I could not even imagine what he and his teammates were going through. And to have that will, to have that courage is something that, and let's not forget, Joe, he was playing in a city that is certainly, Boston had its, ups and downs in race relations. And, he stood tall and he stood proud, and an unbelievable example for the African community and really for the community of humanity. I mean, just did so many wonderful things off the floor. But yeah, I really think it's unfair when you get back to the greatest players of all time. When you mention his name and throw out his championships, I think it's an ultimate mic drop because he won. And I get it. He played with a ton of great players and a ton of Hall of Famers. But there was the most dominant player in the NBA playing his position at the time. And more often than not, he got the best of Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, we could talk till we're blue in the face about the greatest player in the history of the game, but the greatest champion in the history of this game and all North American sports. You let the numbers do the talking there, TD. Oftentimes when we put these players forward, we talk about the way that they affected and changed the DNA of the game. Steph Curry in the way that the shooter has changed. Michael in the way that the guard changed the way that he played. Bill Russell was big time in changing the way this game was played. When you look back at that film and then where we are today, what do you credit to Bill Russell in terms of the DNA of the way the game is played?
I just think he had an unbelievable basketball IQ that he knew to block shots, my father told me, and keep them in bounds. Now we see kind of the ultimate rejection, go into the crowd, the screaming player. It's like, dude, you don't got the ball. Like Bill was able to block the shot, keep it in bounds, and then create a fast break opportunity. But my dad was just telling me the story when I was home recently about, Tommy Heinsohn was guarding him and he was able to beat him off the dribble and score. And he said the next play, like he did the same move and got by Heinsohn, and then the ball was blocked directly into his head by Bill Russell. And he kind of saw that play happening from a mile away. And Red Auerbach, the great Celtics coach, did not demand that Bill Russell practice with the rest of his teammates. I've heard stories that when the Celtics are practicing, Bill Russell's out there reading a newspaper in the stands, and Red Auerbach goes, there's different rules apply to different players, because Bill was already ready when the game was going to come. I've heard stories of him throwing up before regular season games, and now when you talk to NBA players, they're saying 82 games. We're playing way too many games. Here's a guy that's vomiting before they play like the St. Louis Hawks on like a Thursday because he was so excited to play the game. It's almost, we laugh about it, Joe, because it doesn't even sound real that a guy was laying it all out there when that ball was thrown up, game after game, night after night. So, I'm Irish. So when I see someone that lived to 88 years old and had that kind of impact on the floor and off the floor, there's only one way to celebrate his life. Grab yourself a drink, raise it high to one of the ultimate sports competitors, one of the greatest sports winners in the history of the world.
Well said, TD. We appreciate you for stopping by and offering your thoughts. And here is to Bill Russell. The game's greatest champion, Bill Russell, 88 years old, 11 championships, a gold medal, and a 5-time MVP. The legacy will live on.